Guys, welcome back to the shop. Today I'm working on some electrical components, specifically the light switch from on the handlebar, be the horn lights. I'm redoing the cable for the brake light switch too. So just about everything that's going to the handlebar is I'm working on right now. So let me kind of get you down here so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I've gotten two of these recovered. I'm putting the new sleeving on. I've got the one from the light switch. This is the high and low beam, I think. And this one I'm getting ready to do, I believe, that's the horn and the signals. So it's got a little different switch on it. And this one was the front brake, or actually it's the rear brake light from the front brake. So those two are done. And you know, it's I kind of go whatever is easiest. That's what I'm all about. In the case of this wire, it's going to be easiest to just pull the wires out of the connector and put the new sleeving on, rather than coming down to the switches and unsoldering everything. On the let's see, the high-low beam, it was easier also because I just had two bullets down here on this end, and this one spade connector here actually goes into this one too. You got two of them, just one wire out of that one goes into this connector. But in the case of the brake light switch, it runs through a smaller conduit or a smaller sleeving, and in that case it was easier for me because the two bullets would not go through together, and by the time you could get them, you could push maybe one up a ways and then run the other one behind it, but by the time you get about halfway through, it's not wanting to go anymore. So it's easier to just disconnect by unsoldering the two ends here that don't have connectors on them, and that way they just slide right through. So that's the way I do it. I'm all about easy, and that's the easiest way. And something too that you can do that helps some is I use some Glide. It's the same stuff I use to put tires on with. You can squirt it down inside the sleeving, and that helps your wires slide through too. But you just do whatever you have to do. Now, the one I'm working on now, this will be the horn and the signal light switch. I've already taken the sleeving off of this one, and it was really hard and brittle. So I just cut it off with a razor blade. And what I've done down here is I wrapped this with tape as soon as I got the sleeving loose right here. And that is so I can keep this distance as it is. That way when you put it back into here, you've got the proper distance for the horn switch to go over here and for the signal light switch to go here. Otherwise, you might get it back together and this distance to be off, and you'd have to go back in there and redo everything. This way you slide your new sleeving up, take your tape off, and actually you probably don't even have to do that. Just put the sleeving right over it. But either way, it's how it just came out of the switch. Now I've already taken the switches and cleaned them up polished them. You know, I didn't spend a lot of time on them, just clean them up. And all these little components here, actually this, the switch part of the high and low beam, it was broke off, and I was able to find another switch. And this piece here was missing too, so I was able to find all that. And it's out there, so if you need it, just hunt for it. Not going to find it at Suzuki though. And here's the signal switch. I've cleaned all this. All these items have been cleaned with a wire brush so that, well, just so they're clean. And everything, you know, all the threads are in good shape. That's what you want to do. And now I'm to the point where I need to start pulling this connector off. And again, if you watched my videos at all, I always make a little map. This is how I always do it. I always look at it from this end. You can see I've drawn the shape of the connector, and I put in the light green, the blue, the black on this side, and the brown, which comes off of the other one here. That one's going to go in here. And then the middle one's vacant and the dark green. So make sure you do this, otherwise you're gonna get to the point where you're rewiring things and you're not gonna know what goes where. So make yourself a map. It'll save you a lot of headache. Then we're to the point where we've got to start pulling these, and most of the time they're not too much trouble, but they can be. You really need the tool. This is a 2.8 millimeter connector tool, and if you look at the connector here, you've got kind of a T. This you're going to push into the bottom of the T here, and you're going to push down and maybe hold up a little bit, and then pull on the wire. And see, this one's not wanting to just come right out. Sometimes they don't. You have to play with them some. You know, the old adage is, if it was easy, everybody would do it, is kind of comes to play here. So there it is. You just have to get it in there just right. Then we go to the next one. Some of them will cause you some difficulties. You just stay with it. You can get it. All right, finally got it. That one was being a, you know what. Okay, so we got that out. These little tools are invaluable. You need that to do the job. Don't try to use a screwdriver because it's not going to work. All right, I've got my new sleeving here. I believe this is the 9 millimeter sleeving. That's what we're probably going to need for this. And again, when you try to push these things through, stagger them so that all these here are not in one place. So just kind of start it like that. And if I start having problems where it doesn't want to go, then I'll get the Ruglide and put it in there. Just keep little short pushes on your cables. Sometimes it's easier too to cut off the sleeving that you need, instead of trying to push it in and then cut it off. But it's really kind of expensive, and I just hate to waste it. But occasionally you just need to go through here and kind of squeeze and push on things so that it gets to going again. I've got one wire sticking out of the bottom here. I just went ahead and cut it off. Just measure the best you can. It's usually a little easier that way. All right, we're back on. Now, before you redo your connectors, you want to inspect them real good and make sure that you don't have the little locking tangs broken off. But go ahead and take a wire brush and clean those terminals up before you put them back in that connector. Doesn't take much. Just get the dirt and grime off of them. Front and back. And then you want to look on the back side. I think I showed you this on the one that I did the magneto re-sleeve on. You've got these little tangs here, and when you push down on them with your tool, taking them out, they do go down, and then you pull it through the connector and it makes it even more flat. So you've got to kind of come back in here, and I think you can see here, just get you a little tool and push them back out, flare them back out, because if you don't, they're not going to hook back up into the connector. And you've got to have them lock, otherwise when you push the two connectors together, it pushes the terminals out of the ones that are not popped back up. So just take a little tool, and if you break one off, you're going to have to replace the connector. But now's the time to do it while you got it out. It's not that hard to replace them. Okay, so there we go. All those are ready to go back in. So we take our map we drew. Actually, I've got to clean this out just a little bit too. I've got a cobweb in there. That's the vacant one, but see that? This is a spider web or a cobweb or something in there. Let me get this cleaned out. Okay, you got that cleaned out with a little compressed air, and if you need to, use some electronic cleaner. This stuff that will take the grease and grime, because they do put some grease in there from the factory. And when you put your connectors back together, you don't want to do it now, but when you do it, you want to use some dielectric grease on them. And anything like these switches, when you're putting those back together, use dielectric grease on them, not regular grease. This here will actually let the voltage through. So if you use regular grease, it probably is not going to have any conductivity. So let's look here. We got I've got it setting up here, looking at me the same way that it goes in or came out, and Actually, it needs to be this way. All right, so when you're looking at it, you should be looking at the T in. You can kind of see it's the upside down one there. See, this is the bottom of the T, this is the top, but we want it to be oriented this way. This is how we took it apart. This is how we drew our map. And otherwise, I guess the bigger holes are on the back, because this whole thing has got to go in there. Okay, so you've got it oriented like this, so the narrow part is toward the top. That's where this little keeper goes. So we've got the blue here. It goes in the middle one on that side. Blue right here. So just snap it in there and pull it a couple times. If it stays, it's locked. Okay, the one above it is the light green. Should be right there. Yep, looks good. Snaps in. And the bottom one there is the black one. Looks right. Snapped in. Now we've got the dark green, goes on the bottom on the other side. And it snapped in and stayed in. And then the brown one from this one goes into the top, and then the middle one is vacant. And just kind of get those out of your way. Okay, we haven't raised that piece on there yet. Okay, it's good. It's already cleaned. So the brown goes to the top one. And now it's locked in. So these two go together. You have the two wires going up the one side of the handlebar there. So this is one complete set. The other one, which is the one for the brake light switch, I believe that's the only one on the right hand side. So all right, let's see about getting it put back together now. Okay, I was getting ready to put this back in the body, and two of these wires broke loose here. So before they get completely disassociated here, I'm going to make a map of this. I've got black, blue, and green. And let's see, I've got a D up here in the corner right there. So that kind of gets me oriented. So I'm going to have to come back in here and resolder these. It's good that it happens now. We don't want it to happen at all, but it's good that it does now, because if you have to take it back out, it's just double the work. So let me get my soldering equipment set up. Okay. Again, I have got this cleaned up the best I can with a wire brush, and I'm just going to try to get the first one in here. And you know, there's dirt and stuff that's been in there, so just do yourself a favor and get a little flux. You can get this at the hardware store, just regular paste flux. and put some on where you're going to connect it and on the wire, because all that needs to be cleaned. And you get your soldering iron ready. Okay, so I think we're good to go. Kind of mess with it because I'd rather have it come loose now and have to redo it than to have to pull it out and do it again. And you never know. You never know when that's going to be like that. Now I'm just going to take and since that flux is a little bit on the greasy side, just take your electronic cleaner and just clean this good. And we'll just let that dry a little bit and try to get it back together. Okay, these little switches, if you ever have to take one apart, they just kind of spread and hook onto these little ears right here. But you need to try to keep it oriented correctly. First thing I want to point out is there's a little ball right here on this side. That ball needs to go into the slot here, only on the inside. It's going to go just like that. This area up here is where the where'd it go? The handle goes. It goes right here, and it moves this back and forth. And of course, right here is your connector, and that's what's going to connect with these places right here. Okay, so I've already put a little bit of dielectric grease in the middle. That's just for the spring and that kind of stuff in there, and on here, just so that it will move freely. And now I'm going to put a little back up here on the contact area, just like that. I had it there already and the switch came apart, so we had to take that off. Now you just push the one end in, pull this apart a little bit, and snap it down on there. If it doesn't stay, then you may have to bend these ears just a little bit to get it to stay. But that should be all right, because once it gets in there, then it's connected up the way it should be. Okay, so we've got this switch. You can see where the handle goes is oriented toward the top, and the horn switch, there's just get it in there. Got to turn it like that. Get it in the hole, and then this one here just pops right down in there, just like that. And then all these wires go down through that slot. And figure out which screw you're going to need. It's a little flat one there. these, just kind of get them, fits down into a little groove in the bottom down here. One side of that does. And I've taken this apart, kind of like this other switch, and cleaned out the inside. The horn buttons are real good about getting corrosion inside of them. So you get them in there, them or electric start buttons, either one. So you want to make sure you clean those good before you put them back in. Okay. I would suggest when you take these apart to take pictures of them before you take them apart. And that's what I did, and it just makes it easier. Now, at this point, make sure that your sleeving is inside the hole here, like this. And you can kind of push down on it, and you can see that it will go down all the way. This little bracket goes right there. And I'm just going to hold that down as I find the screw. I believe it's this one. Okay, that does a couple things. It holds down this switch here a little bit, holds right down here on the edge, and then it holds all the cabling in here. And this would be a good time to just look again and make sure all your connections are still good on the switch down there. And then we've got the top of the switch is going to go this way. And you've got the other wire for that, for your headlight, is going to come in over here. That's what this hole here is for. So let me get this sorted out. Okay, now this part of the switch here is going to fit in a little groove right here. Let me get you a little closer. Hopefully that's better. It's going to fit in here like this. And this wire, this cable, needs to be oriented toward the back here because it's got to go through this slot. Okay, so let's just forget about this piece for a little bit. And we know we've got this oriented the way it's supposed to. So let's concentrate on getting the upper part put together. Okay, the first thing we need to do is get us a little dielectric grease on here. And just put a little bit over the contacts. Now you can see over here on this edge, you've got these little ripples right here. That's where the ball is going to go, right here on the switch. See, it's spring loaded and pushes in and out. So that is going to go right there, so we need a little grease in that. Now, come on out of there. So just put a little bit of grease there for that to operate. And now the one that came out here, the original one, was plastic here, and that's why it broke. They got Ys later on, and the replacement ones have the metal in them. So we get that stuck in there. And to keep it from falling out on us, we'll go ahead and get the switch on it. And let's see. you got a little mark right here, little line. That's going to go over here so it can indicate whether you're in low or high. And then you've got a small screw. This one, the small screw was missing. Everything was gone because, of course, it broke off. So this piece, the screw, and the top of the main part of the switch was all gone. So I sourced the little screws from McMaster Car. If you ever need them, of course, you're going to have to buy 100 of them, but it's like $7 or something like that. Okay, so we got that in there. Now we can get our other side of the switch in. And it's going to fit in there just like we had it, just like that. I apologize for my old fat fingers in here, but it's just the way it is. Now we've got this little bracket that fits over the line, and you've just got to get your screws started. And before you tighten them all the way down, you can get your cabling and everything situated the way you need it. Okay, now this little piece here that's sticking up, that's going to come in contact or come in play again, holding this switch and everything down on a little bit over here. So all that, well, no, it doesn't. I apologize. That does not. That's the way it is. But this is how it goes. I took a picture of it before I took it out. And let's see, what else we got? Oh, the front little bracket here, a little rectangular one, goes right there, and that keeps this piece of the switch from coming out. Okay, now this particular bike did not have a off and on switch. It's all controlled from the key, so it's got a blank. And this just snaps into the groove there, just like that. I pulled it out so I could clean everything. But if you've got one with a off and on for your headlights, that's where you'll have another switch there. Okay, let's get back to this piece. Now again, let's get a little of your dielectric grease right here. And a little bit on the bottom, right there, and on the top right here. And then you've got your little piece that goes in here that it rotates on, and that's going to fit in between those two little raised spots on the switch. And then you've got a big washer and the screw. Actually, you know what? That washer goes underneath. dinky parts. Goes there. No, I've still got it wrong. The swivel part goes underneath, and the washer goes on top. Okay, so you get the brass piece, and the washer on top, and then your screw. The arm fits in there. There you go. Yep, everything works as it should. Okay, and then you've got this little piece here. Once the other wire goes in, then it's going to cover up the hole back there. So you've got that in, and just get your wire in. And this has got to go in from the inside, and it just fits in like this, and then when that's clamped down, it holds it all in, just like that. Okay, so there's our rebuilt handle switch. We've got 2 screws here. I'll find a couple new ones so it'll look good. Now again, when you get ready to install this wire here is going to get a zip tie right here, and then a couple more as it goes down the handlebar. But everything is so flexible and nice now, you could never get that back on, with the old brittle, hard sleevings. And it would just look like the dickens anyway. So there we go. We've still got to do I've got a couple more here to do. Let me get on those. Okay, I've just got a couple easy ones here, but you've got to get this old stuff off, and you're going to have to take one end or the other off, and it's probably going to be, the bullets are probably the easiest, but you could think, well, maybe the other side, you got junk up inside them. I've got a little round brush that I stick in to clean these. In this case, I think, this one actually is heat crimped here on the end, so it's going to be a pain in the butt to get off anyway. I'm going to have to split it. But anything you do with this old sleeving, let me show you the easy way to do it. Get your heat gun and start heating that old sleeving up. It will get just as pliable as the new stuff. But don't let that fool you. It will, after it cools off, it'll be just brittle again like it was. So you want to do something with it. So at this point, where it's heat sealed there, we'll just very carefully, without cutting the wires, and then you can just kind of get it going there. But see, it's stuck to these wires, so you're going to have to do a little work to get that off. There again, just it doesn't take long for it to get brittle and hard again. So what I usually end up doing is just working this a little at a time, but it makes it so much easier to cut with a razor blade. You don't have to worry quite as much about your fingers. And the thing to do there at the end is to, where you've got this heat sealing, is just get in there with a pair of dikes and cut that. And then you can deal with this stuff later. But you can get it all disconnected from the sleeving, so you can deal with it. And you know, if you really wanted to, on these small ones like this, you could just make new wires. If you've got the wire, if you got the right colors, you could probably just make new wires. You know, taking it apart like this is more time consuming than just replacing the wires if you happen to have them. You know, I've got some of them, but I don't have all of them. So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing here. But anyhow, just a little trick. Use a hair dryer, use a heat gun, heat that sleeving up as you're working it, and it'll be a lot easier. Okay, I've got these wires cleaned up and inspected, make sure I didn't cut anything. And I actually found a piece of sleeving that is just about right for that. So I'm going to start by getting the first one in, and then the second one. I'm going to try to do this without cutting them off and putting new connectors on. A lot of times if you stagger these, you can get them in there. And I believe this one's going to go. Yep. Got the one out on the other end, and there's the other one. So there we go. We got a new sleeving on. And I just had a piece that was good. That's what I do with all my little pieces I have left over. Is every time I do one, I check to make sure that I can use it if possible. Because stuff does cost after you know, if you use a bunch of it like I do. I just spent about $100 on sleeving that I got from Vintage Connections, and it goes quite a ways. But you know, you figure you probably use 4 different sizes on a bike, and you're probably total at around 20 feet, maybe 25. So it adds up. It sure does. So I've got one more to go here, and I think I've got another piece that I can use here. That one's a little short, but this one here will work. So let me get this one done. Hey guys, there you have it. That's rebuilding our handlebar switch and doing a couple other cables, put new sleeving on them. It's very time consuming. It takes you need to pay attention. Probably the best advice that I can give to you is to open them up, take pictures before you put them back or before you tear them apart. That way you'll be able to get everything back in the spot that it's supposed to be. And believe me, there's lots of little parts in there. Some of those handle switches, the little levers and stuff are available. You'll have to find them probably on eBay. I can't think of any that I've been able to get from Suzuki or Yamaha for that matter. Some of that stuff is around. The screws, you need to measure them. These, I believe, are mostly 4mm by 6mm, I think. And I was able to source those from a MasterCard, but you do have to buy 100 and pay shipping too. So, you know, by the time you get them here, you're probably looking at $10-12 for 100 screws that you're probably only going to use 1 or 2 out of ever. But the next time you need them, you got them. The sleeving, the wire, the connectors, the bullet connectors, the plastic connector shells, all that stuff comes from Vintage Connections, I believe is how it's said. Let me hang on just a minute. Yeah, it all comes from Vintage Connections and vintageconnections.com. So that's where I get my connectors. These are the plastic connectors, and these are the pins for them. And in this box, I've got all the bullet connections, the round terminal ends, and all the plastic pieces that go like this. All these different type ends. So that's where you can get all that, and it's exactly the same as came on the bike when it was brand new. They've got some of the rubber Suzuki connectors. They're very expensive. They're like about $7 a piece, but they are available. Those, I believe they use those coming out of the magneto up to underneath the seat. You've got a rubber one usually with 3 or 4 connectors in it. So those are available from them also, but they are expensive. But that being said, this stuff makes it look like brand new again, and it's the correct stuff. Again, I'm not associated with them at all. I use their products because they're good. That's all I can say. It's good stuff, good service. I believe they're out of Oregon. I can order something one day, the next day it's on the way here, and they always ship priority mail. And if you get, I think if you order a certain dollar amount, you get free shipping with it. But it's usually 2 to 3 days I've got it here, and I'm ready to use it. So anyhow, thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.